Hello, dear students. Today, I welcome you all for the online lectures of subject English. Today, we are going to study the lesson from your textbooks 4.2 To Serve with Love by E.R. Brathwaite. Let us learn something about the author, as we usually do. Eustace Edward Ricardo Brathwaite, also known as E.R. Brathwaite, was a Guyanese-born British-American novelist, writer, teacher, and diplomat, best known for his stories on social conditions and racial discrimination against Black people. He was born on 27 June 1912 in Georgetown, Guyana. He died on 12 December 2016 at Maryland, United States. He's also won the Anisfield Wolf Book Award for nonfiction. Let us know something about the novel before we begin. To Serve with Love is an autobiographical novel. We've already taught you what an autobiographical novel is. The narrator is an engineer, but to make the ends meet, he accepts the job of a teacher in a rough London East End school. The school is full of troublemaker students who were rejected from the school for their behavior. At the beginning, the narrator is ridiculed and bullied by the students, but later his calm demeanor and desire to see them succeed gradually earn him their respect. In your textbook, the chapter 17 of the novel is given. It begins with the student in an assembly to present a half-yearly report of the student council. It is an open discussion on improving teaching and learning process in a totally democratic way. It is a subject-wise report by the class representative. This chapter shows how the most undisciplined, the senior-most student of the class, of the school, have become sensibly and mature. If you've watched, dear students, the movie Hitchki of Rani Mukherjee, it is going to be a deja vu feeling for you because there are a lot of similarities to it. These are some of the major and the minor characters of the novel. Ricky Brathwaite, the narrator, Gillian Blanchard, Mrs. Dale Evans Denham, Pamela Dare, Mr. Florian, the principal of the school, and these are some of the minor characters that you need to know about them. Mr. E.R. Brathwaite. To Serve with Love is a work of fiction based on the life of author E.R. Brathwaite. The main character E.R. Brathwaite works as an engineer in an oil refinery. He served in the Royal British Air Force in the war. After the war, being a black person, he was unable to find employment. As a last resort, he applied in a school to become a teacher. Surprisingly, he is accepted at the Greenslade School in London's East End and is set to teach the senior classes of the school. Dear students, while reading the novel, we have to understand the time period in which the story takes place. It is very important. Brathwaite finds that even though he considered himself British and has served in the Royal Air Force, the English do not consider him to be one of them. This leads Brathwaite to feel bitter about the English and colonialism, as well as about the white student. Brathwaite's teaching position starts out roughly, and he is embarrassed time and again. He considers his students disrespectful, ill mannered, and mischievous, while his students consider him to be an arrogant outsider, unfamiliar with the social environment in which they have grown. The students harass him from day one, slamming their desks during his lectures, using foul language, and bullying him to a great extent. Even the girl students do not spare a moment to harass Brathwaite. In a reaction to that, Brathwaite verbally scolds the girl for acting like unladylike manner and being unruly in class. When he understands that his outburst has not gained him any respect and cooperation from the students, he changes his teaching and handling techniques and he decides to interact with them as though they are adults and respectable person. He requires every girl to be referred to as Miss and that his student call him Sir. At first, the students find this level of defense ridiculous and unnecessary. However, they came around only after a few weeks, completely changing both their hygiene and their attitudes towards one another. This marks the success of Braithwaite in handling the students in a very amicable way. To increase the class culture exposure, he takes them on field trips, excursions to museums and theaters. To everyone's surprise, many of the students have never been. A white female teacher, Gillian Blancard, accompanies the class on these excursions. This marks the beginning of a friendship between Blancard and Braithwaite. Similarly, Braithwaite's relation with his student is tested many a times. Although his students frequently disappoint and hurt him, he learns to forgive them. The students constantly surprise him with their maturity, empathy, and knowledge. Another facet of the story which greatly affects its narrative lies in the heavy history of colonialism, its dark consequences, mental and physical trauma that increases Braithwaite's hatred and the wrath for British. He constantly feels the prejudicial effects of colonialism while living in England after the World War II, and these negative experiences frequently shape his thoughts and actions. Braithwaite is surprised and shocked by the conditions in which these students lived, and also the physical trauma of the war that can be seen throughout his teaching environment. Now, let us move towards the theme of the novel. There are three major themes to this novel, which are student and teacher relationship, prejudice, and racism. E.R. Braithwaite gets a job of the teacher in rather notorious school. He finds the student belong to the background not suitable for learning. He changes his way of teaching by including novel and creative ideas which make him win the hearts of the student in no time. The racism prevalent in the Great Britain during the mid 1940s, the time period in which To Serve with Love takes place, is a primary significance in the novel. On the outset, Braithwaite is struck by unexpectedness of such prejudice. His experience was of no use in job interviews, where he is informed that the job has already been filled or he is overqualified for it. This heightens his sense of betrayal for the British men. As a result, he finds the children at the school notorious and misbehaving. But with care and proper treatment, they may achieve their desired goal and be successful in life. Let's move towards the synopsis of the extract. In this extract, the narrator recounts a half-yearly report of the student council in which the students of the school report to the faculty and the other students of what they have been studying so far. Each class gives a brief report of their learning through the chosen representative. The lowest class begins first. Mr. Braithwaite's class, being the oldest, was the last one to present. Each student speaks about some specific subject. At the end, some kind of ruckus is raised by a student, but then the situation gradually resumes to normal. Let's move further. Chapter 17. Dear students, actually the novel consists of 22 chapters, but in your book, chapter 17 is given in detail. We shall study this in detail. I have posted this pics of the textbook. If you want, you can just stop the video and read with the lesson. I've also mentioned some of the meanings, difficult meanings that you might read for your reference. Let's begin with the explanation. The author starts with describing about one important day in the calendar of Greenslade School, which is the half-yearly report given by the student council. Everyone was preparing for their respective roles in the business-like manner, and that was something which the author took pride in. There was no assembly held on that day. The children were dressed in a smart and sophisticated way. Miss Joseph and Denham were the important officials who were allotted the responsibility to ensure whether everyone was doing his or her part properly. The bell rang sharp at 10 a.m., and everyone trooped, which means moved into the auditorium in large number. Miss Joseph and Denham, who were the senior most students, sat one on either side of Mr. Florian. Mr. Florian is the principal of the school. After ensuring that everyone was seated, Mr. Florian addressed the school. He spoke about the aims and policies of the school and how the children can help to achieve them. He praised the children whenever needed, but also reminded that there's still a long way to go before they actually achieve those goals. Then came the turn of the senior most class, which was the narrator's class. He sat up anxiously. Denham reached out the name of the representative. Potter was supposed to speak about arithmetic, Sapiano nature study, Miss Peg and Jackson geography, Miss Dare and Furman physiography, Miss Dodd history, Denham PT and games, Miss Joseph domestic science. The narrator was pleased when the ladies were addressed as Miss and was sure that this would be something for the juniors to learn. As their names were called, they stood up and, in civilized manner, took their respective seats. Miss Joseph spoke about the brotherhood of mankind they learn through various subjects and how humans are interdependent irrespective of race, creed, gender, geographical location, etc. She then called Potter to speak. Mr. Potter spoke about work done on weights and measurements, the relationship between the kilogram and pound, the meter and the foot. He said that either of the two methods were used throughout the world for understanding between different nations, communities, and ethnic groups of people. Next came Sapiano, and he spoke about different things were made of, how the countries pooled their knowledge about breeding habits and migration of these pets. Miss Peg and Jackson divided their report. While Jackson spoke first about mineral deposits and dependency of even a rich country, Miss Peg spoke about human relationship and the post-World War problems of feeding, clothing, shelter, etc. Furman's quite surprised everyone when he made a signal and Welsh and Allison appeared with a skeleton between them. The school laughed and Furman began speaking in a clear and dramatic voice. He informed that the skeleton was a female one and that he was unable to say whether she was a Chinese, a French, a German, or a Greek, and also if she was brown or white or a mixture of both. The bottom line was that we all are the same. Ms. Dare spoke about the problems which humanity faced regarding sickness and diseases and the advantages of sharing knowledge, advice, and providing assistance. Miss Dodd told us about the period of history the class studied, the Reformation in England. She went into the depth about struggle of men and how they tried to understand the different cultures in order to eradicate problems. Denham's report was a shocking one. He used criticism for pattern of PT and games, emphasizing about how less space affected their outdoor play. He went on to say that PT was pointless and same every day. An actual game would have been a far better. To this, the boys cheered loudly, showing agreement. After the reporting was done with, Denham called two children and asked them to write the name of any two teachers, including the head, on a slip of the paper. The slips were put into a hat and shuffled, and then were removed one after the other. The names that came out were Mr. Weston, Mrs. Dale Evans, Miss Philip, Denham, and Miss Joseph led the students off the stage and the teachers took seats. The questioning began. The narrator says that it was rather an unforgettable experience. The questions were mostly asked by the two top classes, as the young ones were either too naive or too timid. The teachers were fumbling. A lot of the most calm one surprisingly for the narrator, was Miss Euphemia Phillips. She answered the questions honestly and would also save her fellow teachers from getting embarrassed. Weston behaved ridiculously. When opposed to Denham's blunt criticism and Furman's skillful and clever way of asking questions, he was completely surprised and got confused as to how should he answer. He could not assure the PT was only any good. Denham, being a trained boxer, was quite sure that these exercises were next to no good and would only help if practiced daily. He also stated that PT only twice a week was a waste of time. To Miss Phillips replied that the school tries to provide the children with each and everything in their best way possible. Though the PT exercises prove to be useless to some boys, it might make a great deal of difference to the less healthy students. She also said that it is beyond anyone's power to please everybody. Moreover, she suggests that the older boys who deem themselves fit could help the ones who barely are. These remarks still couldn't help satisfy Denham's anger, and he reverts by asking that why do fitter boys have to do it then? Why don't they take only the kids who need it? And the other students can play some better sports like football rather than doing something which is of no good. This got quite hard on reply too. Miss Phillips, as always, came up with a witty answer. She said that we could take it up as a training for the mind as it of the body. She continued by saying that everything taught in the school is supposed to help the kids live their life. This PT lecture could be taken up as a training of doing what we are told, though we may not have anything like any liking for it. That shut Denham up, and Miss Phillips smiled. The narrator is left surprised by Miss Phillips' calm way of handling the situation. The morning ended, the head stands up to appreciate the efforts of all the students. So this was the story of the novel that we were doing, To Sir with Love. Hope you've understood, dear student. Thank you for listening.